Have you ever heard of the richest man in human history? No, it's not Elon Musk and it's not Jeff Bezos, it's a Muslim king. His name was Mansa Musa, the 14th century emperor of Mali. And his wealth was so vast, so mind-boggling that even modern economists struggle to put a number on it. Most estimates place his net worth at over 400 billion US dollars in today's money. That's around about 320 billion pounds if you're in the UK. Now, let me say this again. $400 billion. But there's one moment from Mansa Musa's journey that truly shook the world, and it speaks volumes about just how much wealth he had and what happens when that wealth is moved with pure generosity. During his famous pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324, Mansa Musa passed through Cairo, Egypt. Now, remember, Cairo at the time wasn't some tiny village. It was one of the wealthiest and most sophisticated cities in the Islamic world, a global hub of trade, scholarship, and culture. And yet Mansa Musa's generosity disrupted their entire economy. He didn't just give a few coins to poor people. He gave so much gold to the people of Cairo, to the merchants, to the poor, to the rulers, to the scholars, that the value of gold plummeted in the region. Historians estimate that the price of gold dropped by as much as 25% in Egypt alone. Cairo experienced a decade-long inflation crisis as a direct result of his charitable spending. Imagine that, an entire economy thrown off balance, not through war, not through sanctions, but through pure generosity. So to put that in perspective, imagine someone walking into London or New York today, spending and donating so much money that the value of the pound or the dollar collapses for the next 10 years. That's how wealthy Mansa Musa was. You see, it's fascinating. He could have held on to the wealth, locked it away in palaces, but instead he gave it away because he understood something most people totally forget, which is that wealth is only valuable when it's used for something greater than yourself. So now let's pause for just 1 second. Most people today can't even afford to donate £20 without checking their banking app. This man gave away literal tons of gold and still remained one of the wealthiest rulers in history. But here's the most powerful part. When he got back to Mali, he didn't slow down. He used his wealth to turn Timbuktu into one of the greatest centers of Islamic learning in the world. He built mosques, libraries, and universities that produced some of the most respected scholars in West African history. This is what true Islamic wealth looks like. It's not flashy chains, not private jets. It's waqf, sadaqah jariyah, legacy. Mansa Musa proves that being wealthy and being righteous, they're not opposites. In fact, in the right hands, wealth becomes one of the most powerful tools to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and uplift the ummah. And if that was true 700 years ago, imagine what's possible today. Now, if anyone still believes that being poor is somehow more Islamic, let's go straight to the source. Let's talk about the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the greatest generation of Muslims to ever live. These were men and women guaranteed Jannah, handpicked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be the foundation of this ummah. And yet, many of them were incredibly wealthy. Let's start with one of the most famous names, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf radiallahu ta'ala an. This man was so skilled in trade that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam once said about him, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf would not touch a stone, but he would be able to find gold or silver beneath it. He was among the Ashara Mubashara, the 10 promised paradise. And at one point, his caravan into Medina was so massive and filled with such wealth that Aisha radiallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, thought an army was invading. In today's money, based on historical trade records and what we know of his assets, his net worth would exceed around £500 million, which is over $600 million. All 100% halal wealth, earned ethically and spent generously. He financed entire military campaigns. He donated 700 camels loaded with goods in a single day. He freed thousands of slaves. He used his wealth to uplift the ummah, and he was still promised paradise. And then let's not forget Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu, the third Khalifa, the man who compiled the Quran into one official version. Uthman radiallahu anhu was a billionaire by today's standards. Yes, a billionaire. Historians say his wealth in dinars and assets would be well over £2 billion in today's value, around over $2.5 billion. But what did he do with it? He bought and donated the entire well of Ruma when the Muslims had no water. He outbid everyone during the Battle of Tabuk and financed the entire army. The Prophet ﷺ said, nothing will harm Uthman after what he did today. Let that sink in. The Prophet ﷺ never condemned their wealth. In fact, he praised them for how they used it. Wealth wasn't the problem. It was the love of wealth, the obsession with hoarding, not giving, that Islam warns against. Like a certain subsect of the population that we can't talk about. These Sahaba were not just rich, they were strategic. They understood that wealth in the hands of the righteous becomes a weapon for good. They used it to free slaves, they fed the hungry, they built masajid, they equipped the Muslim armies, they funded the growth of Islam. So ask yourself, if you have that backwards mindset, that avoiding wealth because you think it's maybe not Islamic, who are you following? Because it's not the Sahaba. A lot of our people have this issue and this mindset, and it's not an Islamic concept. So it's time to reprogram that thinking. Next, the Ottoman Caliphate, builders of empires and protectors of the Haramain. So let's fast forward from the time of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum to one of the most enduring Muslim empires in history, the Ottoman Caliphate. For over 600 years, this empire controlled vast lands across Egypt, Asia and Africa. At its peak in the 16th century, it was one of the wealthiest empires on earth. The Ottomans weren't just militarily dominant, they were economic and cultural giants. And the most powerful of them all was Suleiman the Magnificent, known in the Muslim world as Suleiman al-Qanuni, the lawgiver. His personal treasury, adjusted for inflation, would be well over £15 billion, which is approximately $19 billion. And that's just his personal share of the empire's immense wealth. But how did they use that wealth? They built masjids, hospitals, madrasas, entire urban infrastructure systems that are still admired today. The Soleimani Mosque wasn't just a place of prayer. It was a symbol of Islamic excellence, funded entirely by the state and designed by Mimar Sinan, the greatest Muslim architect in history. The Ottomans were able to maintain and upgrade the Haramain, the Masjid al-Haram and Masjid al-Nabawi. With no cameras, no fame chasing, they used their wealth to protect the sacred. They created waqf systems, Islamic endowments that allowed wealth to flow continuously towards education, public welfare, and healthcare, a perpetual charity machine. Subhanallah. This was Islamic wealth done right and on a global scale. Now let's turn to the Indian subcontinent, where the Mughal Empire reigned. So by the early 1700s, the Mughals controlled 25% of global GDP, more than Europe combined. But again, what did they do with this wealth? They funded massive public works. They built some of the most beautiful Islamic architecture the world has ever seen. The Badshahi Mosque, the Red Fort, the Jama Masjid of Delhi, and of course the legendary Taj Mahal. Not just a symbol of love, but of Islamic design and craftsmanship at its peak. And the Mughal rulers used their wealth to build libraries, commission Quranic calligraphy, and promote scholars, poets, and inventors across the Islamic world. So let's be real here. If wealth were inherently un-Islamic, why did centuries of righteous Muslim leaders, Khalifas, sultans, and scholars seek to build wealth, protect it, and use it in the path of Allah? These men weren't chasing dunya. They were using dunya as a tool for the akhirah. So we've now covered the wealth of the Sahaba, the Ottomans, the Mughals. Every time, wealth was not a shameful secret. It was an open asset, managed with taqwa, used to empower the ummah, spread Islam, and earn Allah's pleasure. So if you're still thinking that you need to stay broke to be a good Muslim, that, oh yes, the poverty is good and is rewarding inherently, you need to ask yourself, where is that idea really coming from? Because it's not from Islam. It's easy to think wealth and Islam parted ways after the fall of the caliphate, but that's not true. In the modern world, we've seen dozens of Muslim individuals and families rise to positions of immense wealth, influence, and impact. And many of them continue to carry an Islamic ethos with their wealth. Let's start with the most famous of them all, Prince Al-Walid bin Talal of Saudi Arabia, known as the Warren Buffett of the Middle East. Prince Al-Walid built his empire through Kingdom Holding Company, with stakes in Apple, Citigroup, Twitter, and much more. At his peak, his net worth was estimated at over £22 billion. But what matters is not just how rich he was, it's exactly what he did with his wealth. Prince Al-Walid donated millions to humanitarian causes, disaster relief, women's education, and interfaith dialogue. He publicly stated that 100% of his wealth would eventually be given away. That's Waqf level thinking, legacy building, not just empire building. And born in Pakistan, now raised in the US, Shahid Khan is the owner of the NFL's Jacksonville Jaguars and Fulham Football Club in the UK. His current net worth is around £9 billion. And unlike many billionaires, he speaks openly about his Muslim upbringing and the values instilled in him by his parents: honesty, gratitude, and giving back. So, guys, why are these stories important? Because they show you that being Muslim doesn't disqualify you from building serious wealth. It demands that you do so with responsibility. The Ummah needs powerful, grounded, God-conscious leaders who have resources. We need Muslims who can fund masajid, schools, humanitarian work, tech innovation, and defend our causes on the world stage. And let's not forget, the Prophet ﷺ never condemned wealth. He warned against attachment to wealth, and he warned against hoarding. But the best of his companions were wealthy, and they were also the most generous. Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, Uthman bin Affan, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, all millionaires by today's standards, and all guaranteed paradise. So if you've been holding on to the belief that it's better to be poor, ask yourself, is that belief pushing you towards humility, or is it pulling you away from impact? So in my humble opinion, it's time to rethink what righteous wealth looks like. Let's bring it all together. So we've talked about wealthy Sahaba, men who were promised Jannah, not in spite of their wealth, but because of how they used it. We spoke about the Ottomans and the Mughals who built cities, safeguarded Islamic lands, and funded generations of knowledge and spirituality, all through wealth. We looked at modern-day Muslim billionaires who are still making a massive global impact because they had the courage to build, grow, give, and be unapologetically Muslim. And yet so many Muslims today are quietly struggling, feeling guilty for wanting more. They've been programmed to believe that poverty equals piety and wealth equals corruption. But that's not Islam. That's a limiting belief dressed up as humility. The Prophet ﷺ didn't say it's wrong to have wealth. He said it's wrong to be consumed by it. He praised the one who has wealth in his hand, not in his heart. And the reality is this: in today's world, money talks, money builds mosques, money funds schools, money rescues the oppressed. Money gives you options to protect your family, to serve your deen, to leave a legacy that outlives you by centuries. So I'm not here telling you to chase the dunya. I'm here telling you to master it, so it never masters you. And the only question left is, if it's not you, then who? Who's going to build the next great Muslim legacy? Who's going to make the next waqf that feeds orphans after you've died? Who's going to change your family's future for generations? Because poverty won't do that. Even just living the average lifestyle of working 9 to 5 and then retiring on your pension, that's not going to build it. Purposeful wealth creation will. So if this message struck something inside you, listen. If you know you've been playing small, if you want to finally learn how to grow wealth the right way with Islamic values and a clear plan, then this is your invitation. I'm going to leave 2 presents in the description for you. The first one is a link if you are a dentist or a professional who is closing in on the 6 figures a year salary mark, or you've already achieved it and you're serious about learning how to invest and you want to apply to work with us within our agency, then that link is for you. The second link is for those of you who are, again, they're achieving that six-figure salary a year, but they're just not ready to take on a formal mentorship within our agency. So for you guys, we have our incredible private exclusive community, the Halal Capital Club. Click the link below and I'll see you in there, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.